You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the October 2nd meeting of the Michigan City Common Council Workshop. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to come to order and start this 5 o'clock workshop. And as you see in front of you, we were given a sheet this evening of different cuts. And I guess you can look at it, and if anybody wants to make any comments of it right now or study it and have any commentary tomorrow, that's also a avenue. I personally see a problem right away on the cuts, and that is with the paving list on miscellaneous paving, because that money is always there, and I personally think that that's a ploy, and we should not be interfering with any paving work in the city. Does anybody else have any comments? I think there's room to between today and tomorrow to discuss this. I want to make a point that we talked about taking money out of the general fund or the general budget, and I never made a comment or anything. I don't think anybody else did either about cutting money out of the lit public safety money, but there is some room for discussion on what we're doing with patrol vehicles and fleet rotation, because we really don't have a fleet rotation. We have a fleet lease contract. So we need to, hopefully by tomorrow when I get off work, we can have a discussion with the police department about the intention on going with a lease or finding a different vendor to do some kind of a purchase lease program. I do know that they do exist, and that maybe we can, instead of turning over cars every 3 years and having nothing, that maybe we could lease the vehicles and get some vehicles for another 3 years after we buy them under one of those programs, and you have something there and you're not spending that amount of money over the life of the lease. And then at the end of the lease, you have basically nothing. And the point I'm going to make tonight, as I will tomorrow, if people want to argue or discuss the fleet leasing program, I will say this, is that's why we have a Central Service Division. That was the whole intent of the Central Service Division, to take care of our vehicles. So if we are not, then that's what is going on down there. Then we have less work. So those are things that need to be actually, discussed in its full nature. But if yes, Yes,
I just,
Councilwoman Tillman.
I just want to bring to everyone's attention in regards that the Finance Committee that is present, myself and Committeeman Paul Prisbalinski, just obtained this information. So we have not had the opportunity to see what these cuts were going to be. We've asked for this, or Councilman Paul Prisbalinski asked for this information during our prior council meeting, and also 2 financial meetings prior to this. So it would be nice if conversation can begin tonight, because I set the 3rd reading for the city budget for 2024 for the council motion. It's supposed to be scheduled for tomorrow, which is October 3rd. So if we do not have this matter resolved before then that would affect what was submitted to DOGF, correct? For the dates that we've already approved the dates and everything for this to be done on the 3rd. That's what I'm saying.
And you said Good evening.
Good evening.
The council.
Could you state your name?
Sure. Yvonne Hoffmaster, City Controller.
Thank you.
The council already approved the $2 million in cuts at the last council meeting, with the instruction that the administration was to cut $2 million from the budget. So, yes, I did forget Friday to send this email out to everybody. Just a lot has been going on. So I do have a brief PowerPoint if you guys would be interested in seeing it.
That's it.
Yep.
Go ahead. Thank you.
So this is a brief PowerPoint that Tamiko in my office put together for me for this evening. So just to, our first slide here is about just a recap that we held budget workshops. Our budget workshops were held by the Finance Committee the week of August 21st through the 28th. And thanks to Councilwoman Tillman, each department presented their needs and their requests for the budget. And at the budget workshop wrap-up meeting, recommendations for cuts to the police and fire chiefs and deputy chiefs' salaries for 2024 were made. And then as we know, on September 5th, we had the first reading. On September 20th, we had our public hearing for the 2024 budget, and a motion was made and approved at that meeting to cut $2 million from the bottom line of the 2024 budget. So going through all of the expenses, the administration, we came up with a total of the $2 million in cuts, where $1,490,000 came from the riverboat and $510,000 came from the public safety lit. We did look at all of the other budgets. All of our other budgets are really tight, and we could not make cuts from the operating budgets without reducing services or reducing personnel. So, and it's standard practice when a council approves a cut from a budget, you start with the capital purchases. That's standard practice throughout the state of Indiana. So the capital cuts that we did make, and the mayor and I have met with the departments that were affected by these cuts. The miscellaneous paving, which this did not touch the community crossings money. That $1 million is still in the budget for our community crossings match. Central services, the bucket truck for the street department, park maintenance had various projects that they had out there. We cut $284,000 from those projects.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question, just so you are all clear? On the community crossings matching portion of the grant, that $1 million is just for budget year 24, or does that reflect?
No, that's for budget year 24.
Only.
In our MVH restricted fund, we budget $1 million per year for the community crossings because that money can only be used for the preservation of the streets. So that was a good use of that money.
Understood. I just didn't know if that dollar amount reflected an overlap of multiple budget years, or that is
No, just
one.
for 2024, correct. So, and the golf course, the asphalt cart pass for $188,000, and that was on the South Golf Course. Then in the public safety lit, we cut the patrol vehicles and the warrants division vehicle for a total of $510,000. We still have a warrants division vehicle budgeted under our DEA forfeiture fund, so they will be able to acquire a new vehicle for the warrants division. So, like I said, this was a very brief PowerPoint, was just going over everything. So I would be open to any questions.
Well, I have a question for you. First of all, to clarify that the council motion was to cut 500,000 from the riverboat, 1.5 mil from unspecified funds. So I think that what I would like to know this evening is that there had to be an overlap of funding because there were 2 paving cycles that we missed. So how much is actually in that fund? And is this money that's sitting there and then you're saying that we're cutting it, but it's still sitting there?
I don't understand your question. You want to know how much money is in the MVH restricted fund?
Yes, we get like
Yep.
X amount, and we missed 2 paving cycles, so that money is there somewhere.
Well, we
Right.
did not miss 2 paving cycles. The one, we had to deny the grant, but we still had to pay for all the work that was done. And the second one, we just didn't apply for the first round, we applied for the second round and was awarded those funds.
And was
So
it,
it was just under $800,000. So that's the paving we're doing right now.
so how I don't understand really the magic behind this cut on the 750,000, because that's like an automatic draw from the state.
No, this was miscellaneous paving budgeted in the riverboat. Has nothing to do with the community crossings.
It was miscellaneous.
That's what it says, miscellaneous paving.
Okay.
That's how I titled it on your budget forms in your budget book.
Okay. Well, it would have been nice to have that so we could reference it into the book before tonight. Thank you. Any more questions? Good evening, Mr. G.
Yvonne, just to go back to that warrant vehicle,
Mhm.
and where's the funding going to come from again? What?
They had two warrant division vehicles budgeted in the 2024 budget.
Okay,
One was in the public safety lit and one was in the DEA forfeiture fund. That's also outlined in your budget book that you received, because we itemized all of the
Mhm.
contractual services, all of the capital. So you can look through your book and see all the itemizations of all of the capital.
Well, I know, but just for the sake of discussion here tonight, just to get a quick synopsis. So they're asking for 2, we're gonna cut 1, and that's funded through the warrants,
Yeah, the
Division?
DEA forfeiture fund.
the what?
So it's money we receive
DEA
from the
forfeiture fund.
federal government. And please correct me if I'm wrong here. During certain drug
Yeah,
sweeps,
yeah,
depending on what is captured in that we can get a monetary disbursement back from the total amount that they've recovered from a drug bust or
Mhm.
any other type of warrant sweep that they do. The federal government will return a portion of those funds back to the city.
okay, so even if we cut 1 vehicle, and it's still being paid for out of the DEA forfeiture fund, is there still enough money in that fund to support the second vehicle? Does that make sense?
At the moment, no.
Okay,
There's enough money to buy 1
okay,
out of the DEA forfeiture. I
Okay.
don't know what the future's going to bring, but that's one of those non-reverting type of funds. We can
Yeah.
only spend what
On
we
that.
have.
yeah, on this type of purchase. out of that.
Yes, anything that has to do, with drug education.
Warrants, DEA and all
yes,
that.
all of
Understood.
that type of thing.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand, if the money's there, why would we cut the money from there and cut the vehicle from?
They asked for 2,
Yeah,
and so now there's just 1 remaining in the budget.
okay, all right. Got it. All right, and then I have some other, comments. Not so much for you, Yvonne, but just in general, okay, about the budget. And I've already talked to the park department superintendent about some of these items. So I want to go to Gardena Playground. Okay, Mr. Shin, and you and I had talked about this a month and a half ago when the budget book first came out. So I see that we're cutting the whole job out. Okay. And I had talked to Mr. Shin, and I went and I walked that track, and I had the street superintendent come down there and walk that track with me, trying to find, was this track really in that bad a condition that we had to replace the whole track for $165,000? And Sean Smith and myself agreed that there is a bad portion. I'm just going to say 50 feet, could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, that needs to be replaced because it's, cracking up and what have you. But the rest of the blacktop, I said to Mr. Sean Smith, the street superintendent, I said, why can't we just crack seal the cracks that are in there? Because there's an expansion crack maybe every 15 feet. That's, 5 feet wide. Why don't we do that? And how much more life can we get out of this track, Sean? He said, and Sean's been trained by the NDOT training program for blacktop. He says probably another 5 years we could get out of this walking track. So I said, okay. And I says, how long would it take you to crack seal all the cracks that are here? Probably about 2 days. And then the track would be in normal, good condition. I don't want to see anybody get hurt out there. And I know there was a lot of people that walk it. There was a lot of people that push their children around in buggies and carts and what have you. So what I'm going to suggest is that when it comes to this resurfacing the walking trail, and what do priorities mean? Priority 8, priority 4. What does that mean to us.
You'd have to ask the park department. They put those in. I'm assuming that that was the priority that they had those projects at.
Is that what that means, Mr. Shin? Okay, so that has nothing to do with the controller's office. That's their markings. Yeah, okay.
Good evening, Ed Shin, Park Superintendent. And what was your question, sir?
Now, what my question is, under the park equipment, you have priority 3, priority 6, 4, 8. What does priority numbers mean to us?
Well,
Anything?
I can see that we were discussing Gardena Park resurfacing the walking trail, and that was the least priority. But I can expound on your thoughts of repairing portions of it. And it's been brought to my attention by discussing with my maintenance crew that putting Band-Aids on certain things are not necessarily the best way to repair. So we put a low priority on this resurfacing, but we do not think that it should be just repaired in part. We think that it should be repaired when it's repaired in its entirety.
Okay. And I know you and I had that discussion about a month ago, the same discussion. Okay, but you know, if this is going to be in, I don't want to cut the total $165,000 out of that. I'd like to get the bad part repaired. Okay, the 50 feet or whatever needs to be done, and then let the street department come in there and do their crack seal. And let's see what happens, and we can save, you know, this money. I disagree with the philosophy you guys are using that, no, we don't want to just patch something up. We want to come in there and replace the whole thing. Well, I don't think we have to do that. So that's the direction I'd like to see that, because I don't want to see that real bad part stay there. Because to me, that's definitely a safety issue. Yeah. So those are my comments on that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Shin.
Thank you.
All right. The cart pass at the South Course. And I don't know how many other council members have been out to the South Course and looked at the cart pass. And do the cart path blacktopping, does that also include around the clubhouse? Are
It
you
does
guys
not.
doing any blacktopping around there?
That does not include the clubhouse. That needs it just as bad. But it doesn't need it so bad as the cart paths, and the fact that the cart paths are damaging the carts. They're not only a safety factor, somebody could get hurt, but the cart paths are in such a fashion that the carts are being damaged in the undercarriage and the shock absorbers.
Okay, so I would like to see that eliminated from the cuts. I think those cart paths need to be done. Just like you're saying, Mr. Shin, number one, it's a safety issue. Number two, and it's an appearance issue. And number three, it's a maintenance issue on the golf carts themselves, you know, tie rods, whatever, the body, the underframe, you know. So I think that needs to be done. So I don't want to see that cut from the budget. And I think that's all I have. Yeah, that's all I have for you, Mr. Shin.
Thank you,
For
sir.
the park
I
department.
got one question. So,
Yes.
if
All
I
right.
could ask one question?
Yeah.
Just to the issue of the priorities that you designated
Yeah.
on the budget cut form. Just for the benefit of the council, are those priorities changed year to year, or are they part of an overall capital improvement plan?
They're part of an overall capital improvement plan. Some of these have been on the capital list for many years, and sometimes from year to year, the priority numbers do change.
And then is the council made aware of that in the event they're recommending cuts, is that something that they see on a regular basis, that capital improvement plan, or no?
I would think that that was on the original budget with the capitals, yeah.
Okay,
That's been cut
okay, thank you.
to make the
Thank
2
you.
million. Mr.
Are we
Shin,
talking about the capital improvement plan? You see that?
That was my question, yeah.
Or are
He
you
says
just
yes.
talking about this budget? Are you talking about the overall? Capital improvement plan is a multi-year plan. And what I'm saying, he asked if we're receiving the multi-year capital improvement plan, not just the budget.
That I don't think that you are receiving.
But that was the question.
I did give it to them.
Okay, then they have.
Yeah, you should have that.
So the capital improvement plan, we have that.
You should have that, yes.
Okay.
all right.
And when you sent that directly or?
I think that was in the packet that was sent
I
with
still got some
the
more
entire
questions.
budget.
Okay.
And
All right.
the only reason I asked that question is because when cuts do occur and it has then an impact on the capital improvement plan, it might delay some of the plans that you had in that capital improvement plan for a year or multiple years. So I think it helps the council to know what impact some of these moves may have in the grand scheme of things.
Mhm.
That's all.
Right. If it moves something else out to a later date.
Right.
So not just this year, we're talking about the multi-year capital improvement plan.
John Angie?
Yeah.
Okay. You're up, bro. Yeah, so being, working with the park board and from the past and talking about their capital improvement plans, that thing is kind of fluid because things can happen all of a sudden that then shifts priorities around from year to year. So that's why, these priorities that we're seeing right here are at right now. But then, something could happen, the garage or, the golf carts get blown down, tornado or something like that. And all of a sudden, they want to do that. But what's happening now, but like Don said, he doesn't want to cut the 188 to not add that back. Now she has to go find another 188 to cut to make the 2 million. Or if we, throw the 165 back in there, we got to add that back to the total. And now she's responsible to go find another 165 to cut in order to make the 2 million that was put through in the motion. And there's going to be some pain somewhere. And I made the comment at the council meeting that I knew when we saw the cuts that there was going to be some disagreement. And now, we're starting to play around with timelines and stuff like that. So I hope we can get this straightened out here soon. And this is what I fear, and that's why I voted against it.
If I may, Mr. Shin, these golf carts, aren't they made to be ran on open ground?
Yes, they're made to be on open ground, but not uneven surfaces such that we have out at the course.
So let me ask you this, if you have pathways that are that bad, can you just take them up and put stone down?
I asked the superintendent of the greens what he thought about stone because some golf courses do that, but he's not in agreement because stone ends up in the fairways and in the roughs.
Well, okay. And you can border the stone and, there's different ways to control it so it doesn't end up in the fairways. I don't think anybody's teeing off on the paths. But my particular aspect is that I own a golf cart and they're run on open terrain and they're made to be ran on open terrain. So, I guess like Mr. Dabney said, yeah, there's going to be some pain, but the bottom line is this. We cannot spend all this money in the riverboat, and we have to, at some point in time, tighten up the purse strings. I think there's ways, and I think there's ways to achieve the goal. And I believe that I'm gonna talk to the chief and his assistant this evening, and hopefully we can come up with some kind of plan, because here's what I'll get at on the rotation of this money. Okay, you lease cars. Some people like to lease cars. Well, at the end of that lease, you have nothing. Okay, but you're not going to tell me that these cars are kaput after 3 years. They're not. Cars made today are made to last at least a minimum of 10 to 15 years. So my point is that by the time you have any cars that need to be replaced, or carts or anything else, that there's money to be saved. Can you just fix the areas that are bad at the golf course? Every single path is bad.
No, we have figured 1,900 lineal feet is cart paths that need repair because of safety and damaging the carts. Safety to the golfers.
1,900 lineal feet. So that's like almost 3.5 city blocks.
Depending how wide your path is.
Right. I'm saying lengthways. I'm just making an example. Okay. Well, thank you for that point.
Thank you.
Chief. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Don wants to say so.
No, got him coming up, talk.
Hello, Steve Walker, Chief of Police, Michigan City Police Department.
I wanted to ask, is that will you be available tomorrow to take a call?
Just look at the calendar real quick. I know in the morning we have a few meetings, but just have a 12:30 appointment after that. I'm free.
Okay.
So probably 1 o'clock, 1:30.
Okay. I will give you a call at 1 o'clock, and
I know that, you and I have had some conversation, and again, I think that the lease program is something that we need to dive a little bit more into. When we look at it, right, you talk about, I just heard you say about 10 years for, an average vehicle, which I would say is probably typically average of a family-driven vehicle, right? Obviously, police, first responder type vehicles and is a little bit different, right? The hours, the idle time, driving, right? Certain circumstances, all hours of the day, whatnot. But there's obviously many factors when you start talking to police fleet vehicle and the lifespan. Obviously, when we start seeing 100,000 miles, 5 years, 100,000 miles on cars, that's when I would say we generally, again, I'm working with Cranston to get specific numbers regarding maintenance over vehicles over the last 3 to 5 years. But again, when we start seeing cars upwards of 100,000 miles, that's when we generally see them go downhill, right? Start to tank. So that's obviously what we want to try to avoid. We want to get to that point. There is some merit to owning some of our vehicles. Some of our current fleet vehicles are owned, right? We have several Chargers that we do own that are in our patrol fleet. The services vehicles, right? I think our plan going forward, right? There was in this year's budget, right? It was approved by the council to get to renew the 2-year lease on our services vehicles, which those are all now in place. We just finished that up in that transition. I think in going forward, again, in my perspective, having those services vehicles, those are, I would say, Detective Bureau, administrative, vehicles. They're not driven hard. I would say more of a family type vehicle. Right, those vehicles I think are the ones that we're looking to purchase because we can get longer term lifespan out of those vehicles. So I think at the end of this lease agreement, we will look to purchase those vehicles and own those types of vehicles, those service vehicles. The patrol vehicles, again, when we look at our patrol fleet, it's typically, when we're at full staff, would be about 60 vehicles. And again, if we're talking leasing, we're looking at almost 20 per year. If we did a 3-year lease, you know, the price point on here, right, for 45,000, that's for a leased purchase vehicle. The purchase price is about 60,000. So, you know, there's quite a bit difference in the purchase price and a leasing price and that. So, you know, that's some of the stuff that we've started to look at as we rotate out. I know our central maintenance has issues with our Fords that we have. Their water pumps, the engine's got to be pulled. They replace the water pump, and it's like $3,500 per pop. Same thing with the electrical power steering systems. You know, so some of those things as we age are those I would say patrol vehicles become more costly repairs. So that's obviously some of the stuff that we factor in those decisions as well. So we are working on a plan for rotation because the last few years, maybe Assistant Chief Cooney can advise when we had a little hiccup in some purchasing of vehicles. Was that in 2020? There was some delay and or a hiccup. I think COVID purchased vehicles, and then we had a computer chip problem on getting vehicles. So there was a long span where we didn't get any new cars, right? And central maintenance was expending a lot of money on repairs on old vehicles, right? So at some point in time, right, we have to evaluate, you know, when do we have to get rid of those, right? So, and again, it's a guessing game because some vehicles drive better, some last longer, you know, this and that. So again, we obviously try to look at the whole grand scheme of things when we're doing that.
Well, I do understand what you're talking about, the Ford issue. And I'm not picking on any one brand, but do we still have Fords in the fleet?
We do, yeah.
How many?
Yeah, we have
Six?
them all laid up on we're probably 20.
Why do we still have them then?
Because we purchased those vehicles.
Well, we're talking about, you know,
Replacing. Yeah.
right.
So that's this 10, right? Part of this 10 this year would eliminate, you know, at least half of that. If we have 20, again, we have a spreadsheet that has all of our vehicles laid out on it, which shows all the Fords. But again, 10 of these new vehicles would replace those Fords. So then we would essentially have the best 10 for our, we call them fleet vehicles, right? The just in case vehicles. Mine's got to go in the shop. I need a fleet, you know, to pull while maybe the brakes are getting done, oil changes, stuff like that. Obviously, you know, things happen where we need repairs. So we have to have.
Are you talking about the Durangos that are in the budget?
Yeah, that would be these 10 that were in here under the public safety lid.
Okay, well, the way I see it is that I made that scenario on how vehicles are made and how they can last. And I do understand that, you know, when you're driving them around and how they're being driven by the department, that I think that a lifespan of 6 years is we could save, if we were in a 6-year lifespan, we could be saving money for 3 years without doing a lease and or something. And in the long run, I think fiscally, and of course, I guess we'd have to have somebody from a fleet break it down to us. But have we ever even got to the point where we have got a different vendor in here to give us any quotes?
I mean, traditionally, obviously, we've gone with Fords, you know, in the past we had Chevy Impalas, you know, and I would say recently, probably not. You know, I mean, obviously, in 2020, we started going to the Dodges. So we listened to, obviously, their spiel on that. You know, I know the Dodges are readily available now, you know, and the price point is, I would say, is probably the best price point for currently. You know, obviously, we can explore other vendors and whatnot and the longevity of, you know, different types of vehicles, but obviously then you have to just consider, you know, obviously the price point of some of those as well.
Here's a copy of the Q&As that I requested, and
I'm sorry. Here's a copy of the Q&As that I asked for the budget hearings. If you wanted to think
Yeah, if you got your-
to what was provided to us. There you go. Yes. Regarding the fleet and everything.
So yeah, as you can see there on page 2, right, like we get into our 2013, 14, 15 Explorers. So there's 6, 13, 14, 18, at least 18 or 22 vehicles that are at least
Thank you.
8 years old.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Does the department or the city just generally ever take advantage of any QPAs for these vehicles in particular? For these type of vehicles? When you go through the procurement process, where basically you can piggyback off of the state procurement process and.
Yeah, I know that we've looked at them. Yeah, they have in the past. Again, you know, I'll apologize for my inexperience and, you know,
Well, you wouldn't be responsible
yeah,
for
but I
doing
know
it
that,
anyway.
I know.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm
No, I'm
curious, you're on the topic of what's the best pricing, all that. Oftentimes taking advantage of the QPA,
Right,
you might be able to find,
those price points.
yes.
I just want to say that I think it's a good discussion point that we get into it, and I'll call you at 1 o'clock tomorrow, and because I'd like to see something brought to the council with information on different vendors, because I think there's some way somehow that we can save money by a lease purchase agreement, and I'm not in no way suggesting that we keep any vehicle for 10 years.
Right.
Okay, because yes, it's not a family-driven vehicle, that's for sure. So I guess there's room for discussion, and also that as I said earlier, that I wasn't I didn't see, and I'm kind of amazed that this cut was even brought to the council, since it's out of the lit fund. And it's kind of discouraging for me to suggest that, but since it was suggested, we'll discuss it. Okay, thank you.
I got a question.
Okay.
Yeah, Chief, I got a question for you, please. So getting back to the vehicles, so when you guys go out for bids for cars, okay, do you call in 3 different vendors? What's the process with all this? Or do we just keep going to Dodge in LaPorte and say, we want these, we want those? I mean, do we go to Chevy and say, hey, Chevy dealer, what is your prices on police vehicles? Because you go down to Indianapolis and they drive Impalas, they still have some big Crown Victorias down there. South Bend, they drive Impalas all over. Yeah.
Dave Cooney, Chief of Services with the Police Department. Because it's such a high cost, we usually bid them out. So Chief Corley will go before the Board of Works. He submits out for a bid, and then whoever responds is typically who we would pick the best deal from.
Okay.
And it's just lately it's been LaPorte prices.
Okay.
So, I don't have a question for Chief. This is about something else.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the only question I had was about the bucket truck for Central Services. 'Cause I feel like, I don't know. I feel like we get requests all year. I'm trying to understand, what is this, a replacement truck? That's all I need to know. Is it a replacement truck? What is it? Or another toy they want? Because I'm just saying, yeah, what's going on?
They already have one bucket.
Right. Right.
Sorry.
You,
Mr.
if you can
Shin,
ask her.
or the park department has a bucket truck and, okay,
Oh,
go
this
ahead.
is the one. Okay.
Ed Shin, Superintendent of the Parks. To answer your question, Ms. Deitch, the Park Department, I'm sorry, does not have a bucket truck. We have borrowed bucket truck from the Street Department to put up Christmas lights and various things with trees that we can reach with that truck.
Mhm.
It was brought to my attention from the Street Department that the bucket truck that we borrow from them is not conducive to their work because it has no cage above the cab. The cage above the cab is important for safety of the person driving, for protection of the vehicle, and not having to work inefficiently. If you're cutting a tree limb high in the air and you're about ready to drop the tree limb, sometimes you have to back the vehicle out so the tree limb doesn't fall on the vehicle. So they're looking for a bucket truck with a cage. It's more efficient for their purpose.
You cut
Thank
too
you.
many trees already. That's a whole other thing. Okay, so
If I could comment,
I don't remember
Councilwoman.
getting that.
Yeah, and then with this bucket truck, I was told today that they would be okay with this cut. They didn't have a problem with that. The thing they didn't want to have cut, and I don't see it on the sheet here, was the GPS system. I guess that the street department wants to install this year. Yeah, they want that. Now, and getting back to the bucket truck with this cage above the cab, why can't we,
Retrofit?
get it retrofitted at a dealer somewhere and have it installed on the truck and the safety issue's done with? Yeah, I mean, it's not, that's what I would do. At least, I don't know if I would have it done, but at least I would investigate it to see if it could be done instead of going out and spending $150 on another bucket truck. Yeah.
With that being said, I don't understand why you'd have the truck in an area where you're going to cut down a limb. Okay?
Because they got to get up to it.
Well, I understand that. If you got to get up to it like that, you should have a man lift. Having that bucket truck like that, and you can rent man lifts. You know what I mean? If you got that big of a dangerous situation there, you know. Anyway.
Well, I'm not really in support of the cut, so I'll make whatever amendments at the council meeting, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have any other comments.
Councilman Prisbylewski?
Yes.
Yeah, this is
Yes, Dr. Quara.
Yeah, this is Vidya. I'm joining you on Zoom because I had another meeting just prior to this. So thanks for organizing this. I'm new to this. And I've heard this whole discussion. My main question is, what prompted the $2 million cut?
A motion at the last council meeting made by myself to come up with cuts in the budget, and it was voted on and approved by the council that the administration go over the budget again and look for cuts.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to understand what
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was my other question. I knew I had something else. So I guess I'm confused a little bit, but and I think you alluded to this, Controller Hoffmaster. Maybe you can answer the question. You said that basically you came up with these cuts to not impact salaries, right? In operations. And I think the motion was about, did it say up to, because words matter. I don't remember what the motion was, up to $500,000, or did you, because I don't recall what the motion, if you were wanting cuts from, everything else is either restricted, general fund, so the money had to come from somewhere. And I guess last year when we did this, it came strictly from the riverboat, I think. So are you wanting this to be based on the motion? Because the lit is included.
Yet this wasn't just a motion. The council voted on this, and the administration was informed that they must cut $2 million from this budget. And that's what we did.
Okay. I just didn't know specifically if there was anything else, but I heard what you said, so I understand it. I just wanted to make sure, was there anything, Councilman Privilinski, that you were looking for specifically from Riverboat, or just to keep it at that amount, 500,000?
I was looking for 500,000 and 1.5 million out of the budget itself.
From anywhere.
Right.
Okay,
Anywhere.
so it can come from Riverboat.
It did not specify.
Okay,
Right.
got it. Thank you.
Are there any more questions or comments? I believe Mr.
Yeah, I have some comments.
Councilman Don Prespolinski has some.
And the $750,000 for miscellaneous paving, I don't think that should be cut from the budget. To me, a lot of these streets are in very, very bad shape, whether you use the Pazer system or not.
That incentive picking back in, you gotta go 2 million. Whether we're not cutting 2 million.
So, I mean,
I take most. Yeah, that's true.
well, and then, so, and here's my final comment. You know, if I may talk, please, if I may talk.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. That, we may have voted on the motion to cut $2 million from the budget, but if we don't agree with what the cuts are, I'm not going to sit here and agree upon something that the administration gave to us. I'll make an amendment and put it right back in the budget and be done with it. I mean, to sit here and say, yeah, well, and I know they're just doing what we asked them to do. That's what they're doing. So, yeah, but some of these things are a need item. We all understand that. Blacktop, that's a need. We're all complaining about bad streets and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's got to be done. And to me, some of these public safety items, like Gardena Playground and resurfacing walking trail, I'm saying, let's go out there and get together. And Mr. Shin, I don't know if you even called Mr. Smith at the street department to talk to him and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Maybe we can save $20,000, because I don't know what it'll cost to put the tar in the cracks. Well, we're talking, 3 street department workers for 2 days to go down there and do that. And let's see what it looks like. It may be a good idea that you can use in other playgrounds around Michigan City. So let's use this as a test plot instead of just saying, no, park maintenance said, we do the whole project or we don't do any of the project. Well, sometimes that doesn't work. Even around the house, it doesn't work. If you got the money, okay. But to me, and we had this discussion, what we could do with this money, we could have, if that was to stay in the budget, you could have had that $165,000, repair the track at Gardena with the, cracking the crack seal and replacing that 60-foot piece of bad blacktop, and then take the other money and fix the North Course clubhouse. And I don't have to sit here and tell you and the mayor what they look like, because I've been out there with you guys twice in the last 2 years. And I don't know if any park board members have been out there to look at that. But that place is a disgrace to the city of Michigan City. And I don't know why we can't get something done out there. We could have took some of this money and probably did the whole project and been done with it. So those are my comments on that. So I'm just saying, I don't agree with some of these cuts, and, we'll be putting amendments together to take care of this. And then, Yvonne, when does the budget have to be passed and sent to the state for final acceptance? Because I know that's always a big date.
The budget must be adopted tomorrow night, and we have 48 hours to submit all of the signatures and forms to the DLGF.
Okay, thank you.
But before you go, if I could ask a question, or just so that tomorrow is a little smoother on the floor. So if there are any amendments that are made and it puts money back into the budget, obviously the council can't determine where that money is going to go, right? The administration sets the budget and then the council adopts.
I don't believe they can put it back.
Well, by amendment, I think they can, but it's got to be at the recommendation of the administration that you're basically presenting an alternative budget that for their consideration. That's the only way it would be able to get to them for a vote. Now, timing wise, that's a different story. But my point is, if they're trying to make an amendment on the floor to say, okay, well, we're not going to make that cut and we want this dollar amount to go back in the budget and this is where we want it, that's not the function of the council, right? It's
correct. That is correct.
I just want to make sure we don't have confusion, so we talk through that here as opposed to tomorrow, because we can't do it.
Yeah, because that was going to be my question. Can they rescind their amendment that they made at the last council meeting?
They can,
and
but
then that would put it back to where it was before.
That's what the understanding has to be, that it goes back where it was, not goes back somewhere else. Because then I don't know how we fix that. I don't see how you can do that. And that's the only reason I'm raising it. Because if someone has that expectation, we can't do it.
Exactly.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, and the only alternative, so the only alternative would be that departments can come to the administration in the new year and plead their case for the importance of a project or a piece of equipment, and the administration can submit an additional appropriation back to the council. That's the alternative to replacing any of the cuts that have been made.
I just want to make sure that the council members are clear on it, because I'm hearing it that, hey, I'm not quite in favor of this or not in favor of that.
Yeah.
If you're going to make an amendment, that's what would happen. If
You have to
you
rescind
a portion of the cuts, that means that money reverts back to where it was in the budget proposed by the administration,
Period.
not somewhere else.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes back to
Wherever it came
Yeah.
I got a
Yeah,
question,
general fund,
Yvonne,
the river
for
fund.
clarification purposes. On the you have this letter of 2024 proposed capital expenditures, and under the engineer's budget, you have miscellaneous paving, and you have 750,000. So this is what? Did you say that was riverboat money?
Yes, that is the engineer department within the riverboat.
So that we're allocating in the proposed budget that was given to us 750,000 additional besides the money we get from the state.
That is correct.
That is correct. That's what I wanted to try to clarify. So now, with that 750,000, since it's not an MVH fund, is there a project list for that 750,000 for the next year?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, okay.
I don't know that for a fact.
They usually were working like now for the next draw, so
Right.
they don't
I
have
know
something.
the Community Crossings has a list, because they. go
Well, this
from their
isn't
Taser
this isn't
rating.
community crossing money.
No, and that's why this was labeled with miscellaneous paving. This could be for emergency road repairs.
Maybe
I
stand up.
don't know, we have a really bad winter and you get
So what-
frost heave and we had to tear up a road to fix it. That would be like miscellaneous to me.
Okay. I just wanted to make that point that this is an additional and above and beyond and no project list right now. Thank you. Did you get that, Dr. Cora?
I did. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's the point I was trying to make, that this additional money that's laying there and we have no project list in front of us. So it's kind of at the will of probably the Board of Works. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question. So, Attorney Harris, you said that, so if a amendment is written, to rescind, do you list each of the items specifically that is listed on this sheet?
No.
What do you do?
So what you would be
Or
doing-
just a riverboat? 'Cause
It's not even an amendment necessarily.
I know.
It would be just a motion to rescind the whole thing. The whole
Right.
thing. Yep.
okay,
Yeah, it wouldn't even be an amendment.
that's what. Okay,
Yeah, it technically wouldn't even be an amendment. The administration presents the budget however they deem appropriate.
right.
You cut it if you're going to cut it, and obviously if there's not a consensus on what those cuts would look like, and you don't want to see those cuts occur, then you have to rescind the action that was previously taken and go from there.
Okay. That's what
Okay, question.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, so getting back to what you were saying there, Jewel, is so tomorrow night, take for example, if you want to cut something, from here. Okay, let me get my verbiage straight.
And when you say cut something, you mean cut something from the cuts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Put it back.
Yeah. Put it
Yeah.
back, but yeah.
okay. So you're saying it has to be an amendment or it doesn't have to be
It
an
does
amendment?
not have to be an amendment. I believe the appropriate language would be to rescind the whole thing.
Yeah, but see, I don't want to rescind all the cuts. Huh? I don't want to rescind all the cuts. There's some that, are okay with me. There's some that aren't okay with me. So I want to put them back.
Or nothing. We have to rescind the full 2 million
Oh,
or nothing, or leave it as it is.
Correct. I agree.
okay.
Otherwise, you're performing the function of the administration and setting the budget as opposed to just approving the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why when Councilwoman Tillman was having all these workshops
No.
and asked for amendments, that's what that was for.
So,
I think what the controller, though, did suggest is that when the new year comes and those department heads want to, make their case as to any changes going forward or special appropriations, it can happen then.
right.
You have to either you have to adopt a budget tomorrow. There's no doubt about that, and there's already been action taken to remove it. So that's what the budget is at this point. So you're either rescinding that action from before, or you're adopting the budget as is. I mean, that's just where you are procedurally right now.
I will say that
Attorney Harris.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a quick question, Attorney Harris. So are you saying that it's an all or none? Either you accept all these cuts or you don't accept all these cuts. We can't be selective. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. It's not even really accepting the cuts. The cuts have already been made.
Okay.
So it's not really an issue of, is the council going to accept the cuts tomorrow? The question is whether or not the council is going to adopt the budget with the cuts that have already been made. The only thing that's being presented now is the details of what those cuts have resulted in, but the council already made the cuts.
Okay.
So now it's just in the formal adoption of a budget as required by state law.
Okay.
Let me restate my question. So if I don't like certain cuts in that, the only way to avoid those cuts is to rescind the whole thing.
Correct.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah, and I was just, kind of piggybacking on that same thing. So to rescind all of these cuts basically puts all the money back.
Yes.
Right. And so what Yvonne was saying, if we did go through with all of the cuts, and then in the next year, each department could come and ask, for these things back.
Yes.
In additional appropriation.
Correct.
So and that's what she was saying when she said that. So
yes.
So that is just to make it simple. That's where she was
that would
going.
be the process. Yes.
Yeah.
Attorney Harris. For clarification purposes, even though the cuts could be rescinded or whatever happens, there still can be amendments on the budget because there was a adoption of amendments on third reading at the last meeting, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to make that point. Thank you. So one point is that if, and I'll make it tomorrow night, and I'm glad that this 750,000 is in there the way it is, so people get clarification on it, that it's additional money for paving with no list. So once you appropriate that money, you lose control of it. Because you have appropriated the money in the budget. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's the point I'm trying to make here.
If you're saying that there isn't any council discretion on those funds going forward, it's true. If you approve the budget, then it's in that budget as a capital outlay for miscellaneous paving as the need arises, as prioritized by the administration.
Right. So we don't have any control over it.
Once you pass it, no, you lose all control.
I hear you saying that there may be some issue there.
Yeah.
Please chime in. I want to make sure we have all the correct information, so please.
You're correct. Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Attorney Harris? Yeah, so a question.
If you don't mind, before we get to that question,
Yeah, go
I think
ahead.
they wanted to chime in on the issue of how that 750 would be handled once it's included in the budget and adopted. Then go ahead. You were going to elaborate.
Right, back in, I believe it was 2015-ish, the council passed an ordinance that each individual expenditure must come before the council before we can spend riverboat or Boyd development money.
So I wasn't aware of that. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So the purchase orders, that's why we do the purchase orders now, so you can approve them or deny them. And that's where the council has control on the spending of the riverboat money.
Wayne Perry, Mayor of Michigan City. Let me give you the background on that 750,000. I asked the controller to put that in the 2024 budget after we were able to negotiate the paving of Paz Road with the county commissioners. As long as when we do community crossings, we designate the streets that are going to be done. We can't do any other streets. Even if we have a sinkhole that has to be fixed, we can't. We still have the discretion to control the spending, but what it does, in the way we were able to pave Paz Road was by piggybacking with the county, we're transferring funds to use their unit cost. We analyze community crossings on a lump sum bid basis. The county specifies so many miles of road that they're going to pave every year, and they get a unit price per ton of asphalt, which was when you translated the two, it was so much less money being paid for the asphalt than we were paying doing it the community crossings way. I asked Yvonne to put 750,000 in there
for paving so that if we have a need, we're not handcuffed. We can use it. You still have the discretion to say no by the ordinance that was just discussed. So it's not a slush fund. It's not money that you do not have control over. It gives us latitude to repair paving at specific locations where it needs to be repaired. Plain and simple.
One final point is that when it comes to paving in our neighborhoods, is that I think that there needs to be a plan going forward, and I will always feel that way about it, and that because of this, I'm gonna make this point tonight, I'm gonna make it tomorrow, is that the Pazer study is not being followed. There was a paving plan in the city, and it's not being followed at all. So that argument to me is moot. Thank you. Is there any more discussion for the good? Okay, I'm going to call this meeting over, and thank you, Dr. Cora.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, and Councilwoman Tillman, Councilman Przybylski, Don C., and Councilwoman Angie Nelson Deitch. Thank you. And Bryant Dabney. Thank you.